Red alert. Hillary loved this job. Rufus controlled ecstasy, her joy, her life. Every ruby she bagged meant a raise in status and gained more privileges from the state. If the autocrat permitted, she would serve her rotation millennia without hesitation. Day spring, noontide, and evenfall, collation pills slipped into the smallest pocket. So Hill, as she preferred to be tagged, always had convenient nutrients readily available. There were 35 refill posts throughout Flat Quadrant alone. Plenty of unwind stations, too. For weaklings in want of metal, Hillary thought. She tensed. A loud snap attempted to circumvent the detection crystal implanted in her brain. "Who is it?" Hillary demanded. She traced the area rapidly. Back and forth, up and down. May as well come out. Gut drawn to the ready, she pursed her lips and retraced her silent, methodical steps. Hillary's eyes were emerald sensors that nothing, not even the tiniest particle of dust, escaped as she tracked every millimeter of orange sector. "I'll find you," she drawled, almost sing-song. "How do you find me, then?" The noisy whir of Zarian's mechanical joints irritated Hillary no end. "You obsolete piece of—" Now, Zarian interrupted. "Let's watch our vocabulary, shall we?" Hillary glared at the little robot, her gat still drawn, prepared to shoot at a moment's notice. "Maybe I should just squeeze the trigger and put you down, for all and good," she said. A wry grin quickly evolved into a self-confident smirk. "And that ridiculous thing you hauled from the dump," she snickered. "Chep is not ridiculous. He is officially categorized a CR, Programmable Animal Companion, thank you." Uproarious laughter echoed throughout Orange Sector. "You funny little mockery of life." Hill clucked her tongue. Animal companions went the way of toys and BMX bicycles eons ago. Chep yelled his objection, then hissed for emphasis. "This garbage trailing after you should have been deactivated before it was scraped," Hillary continued. She squatted and took direct aim at the tiny, animated, metallic feline. "Go on, Hill, you'll regret it." Zarian's demeanor was eerily calm. "Regret?" She rose to her feet quicker than the new download unit could transfer files worldwide. "I've regretted nothing from the millisecond I was legally born. And how would a toy—" "No, not a toy. You know that very well. Or have you forgotten? Those many centuries past, your childhood, when Christmas was still observed. You were but an infant of 500 years, I believe. How was your big present? How your baby greens sparkled over my tricks and magic." Zarian purred. His dual, elongated fingers brandished the air in a gesture of bewilderment. "But I digress." "You'd best give it a rest," Hillary snapped. "No toy had my design," Zarian squeaked. "My purpose was to tend, guard, and above all, protect you from harm. How was I to do that? Remember?" His globular head tilted on its virtually non-existent neck. "Do you remember?" Hillary ground her teeth and squinted. "Well, let me refresh," Zarian proceeded. "Category D, Propulsion Resonance Thunder. The D was an abbreviation for what? Death, as I recall. Instantaneous. Extremely unpleasant." Zari, her rough demeanor eased. "Go on, Hill. Fire it, Chep. That ample flesh will be cinders before you take your next breath." "What are you doing lurking about?" Hillary conceded, heaving a deep, exasperated sigh. "You always equal trouble. What is it this time?" Zarian jumped high enough to stomp his oblong feet. "Since you inquire so nicely," he fluttered his tiny blue orbs, then shook his head. Misfortune has it, my programming requires me to report red alerts directly to the administrator of Rufus Control. Your last gain, I believe? Zari, you try my patience. It's Sylvie. The little robot's voice box hiccuped and emitted a horrid static. Ah, the Rufus temptress. Indeed. And Hilary raised her arms in parody of a seducer. How does she qualify for a red alert? Hill, Zarian buzzed. Who is the autocrat's strongest mercenary? Who bags more rubies than you can ever hope to glimpse during your illustrious career? Who? Her face paled as she began to understand the implications of Zarian's roundabout communique. Shoo, Hilary stammered. Shoo, Zaria confirmed. Sylvie, after Shoo, Hill felt numb. Has she? Not yet, Zarian responded before she could finish. But unless immediate action is taken, she will. Have you notified Chance? Sulafen? Misfortune has it my programming requires me to report red alerts to. Hilary ran past the robots toward the dispatch center. Go back to your precious dump, why don't you? She yelled over her shoulder. Chet purred. Had Zarian's upgrades been implemented each year as they should have been, he would have eyebrows by now to raise in puzzlement. He placed a finger just beneath a row of rectangular plates on his head. Viewed in whole, they resembled a mouth, but they merely functioned as speakers to broadcast his words. It appears we're off to the dump, he said. Chep yowled his disapproval. I know, but misfortune has it, my programming overrules independent action, following an order. So, I guess to the dump is our battle cry. Tally-ho. The little robots tottered down the corridor. Remind me to oil your joints, Zaria noted. His friend clanked a mighty louder than usual. Chep purred, contented to be Zarian's companion. Orange Sector Dispatch Center was empty as usual. Since her last gain promotion to administrator, Hilary was the only personnel with universal access privileges. All others had better check the schedule log before they dared enter. It was a massive space and held a single convex unit comprised of 8 monitors, 3 computers, and a tower module that ran the whole contraption. The powers that be had included an attached workstation, fronted by a couple of swivel chairs. Anachronistic remnants of the last supply purge, but Hill admired survivors, even inanimate ones. Sula Fen, Hilary skipped the formalities and went straight to urgent. Sula Fen, move your... Stop right there, Hill. Silvery grey hair flared round her pixie little face as she lumbered to the communication screen. Her micro-mini apartment was nestled in an odd fork of the passage between Corvine's quadrant and Red Sector. She could hear their administrator before any visual appeared. This serendipitous delay gave her a moment to snatch a caftan from bedside counter and cover herself. If Blair's hanging around again, Hilary grumbled. A raspy complaint from the speaker broke the silence that followed until she regained impassivity. You can be capped for any association with the abbot, especially Blair. Stop right there, Hill. My affairs, intimate or otherwise, are none of your concern. Sula Fen, her incredibly long and slender fingers well out of view screen range, fiddled with the controls to maintain a fuzzy broadcast image. She never liked Hill. Hilary demanded respect when it must be earned. And nosy to boot, she muttered, and winked at Blair. Blair was the principal organizer of the abbot, a formidable movement to repeal the shoot-on-sight edict for all rubies. Mercenaries and populace alike used this order as an excuse to eliminate undesirable redheads in their own families. Adults, children, toddlers, and the autocrat rewarded them with more gains than ever dreamed in their wildest imaginations. The dust cap over their speaker coil throbbed. Sula Fen, Hilary barked. As my principal informant, it's your responsibility to maintain unobstructed contact. Visual is lousy, audio is worse, or what's going on there? Clear up the reception immediately. Blair scowled. I'll be in the lab, he whispered, and leaned closer and kissed Sula's neck. My God, what a Jenny Hill is, he brayed, and under his breath she giggled and tossed Blair's spectacles to him. Sorry, just a bad connection, Sula Fenn smiled. Good grief, you sound hysterical, Hilary. Intense is not hysterical. You need to shag at Sula Fenn. We have a red alert. Do you know where Chance is? I've been unable to contact her. She heads Yellow Sector, you know. I think she might still be on rotation. Chance doesn't report her whereabouts to me. What's the red alert this time, Hill? A newborn? Derision warrants punishment. Hilary almost bit through her lower lip. But this situation is too critical to fall secondary to insubordination. Sylvie is after Shu. If her seduction succeeds, the autocrat will lose its mightiest advocate, and the rubies will advance in dominance. Hilary spat into the microphone, and Circle just does what she wants to do when she feels like it. When she feels like it. Definitely no help from our dear sorceress. Find Chance now. Sula Fenn closed her eyes. Yes, Administrator, will do. She shook her head. A tremendous rush of sorrow poured over her petite body as she conceded to the inescapable directive. Good, Hilary confirmed. Good. Eli's heart pounded with such force she thought it might burst any moment. Discovery that life other than her own kind still flourished somewhere, anywhere. Even the dump excited her more than the removal of status codes from the wrists of neonates in Factory Central. Her joy for many years to disengage them. Status codes had been established by the autocrat. Those born prior to their implementation were free to forego the process following submission of full hands and feet prints, eye recognition forms, skin and brain cell samples, and sufficient blood for typing and donation requirements. Eli was one of the free souls who held no affiliations. The populace was chaotic and lacked direction. The autocrat revelled in its violence, and the Abet, an organization founded to end the wanton murder of rubies, was equally murderous in its means. Everyone panicked when red-haired female children metamorphosed into humanoid lie detectors. Why? Eli thought. She fondled the brilliant yellow petals of a dandelion. Little miracles still happen on Planet Bureau. The rocky crags of the dump always held surprises. Well, Eli's thoughts returned to flight of the rubies. If people just told the truth, there would be nothing to fear, her mind sighed. They simply don't understand the difference between a kind falsity to spare another's feelings and an outright lie. Eli grinned. She was mesmerized by the beauty of a plant filed in the historical chamber under weed. A loud snap broke into her muse. Oh, startled, Eli's hand clamped around the dandelion and yanked. Oh dear, the robot hummed. Eli, you're Flora. It's all right, Zarian, really. Eli craned her neck. Hey, Chep, she waved. And who's your new animal companion? Not CR, more like a C1 original? Poor fellow. Kinda looks. Please, no references to condition. Zarian's eyes appeared to narrow. But how could they? Zarian had no movement in sets. His eyes were round dots that absent lids and lashes. This is Dwa, he croaked, and flourished a clamorous bow. Lovely. From the Genesis period, then. Dwa means to begin. Eli crinkled her nose. This is why you like foraging through the dump so much, isn't it, Zarian? You'd save all the throwaways if you could. An unformed question, rhetorical. What brought you to Zone 4? Another hunch? Formed question, not rhetorical. Response? No. You're being glib, Eli laughed. I love you, Zarian. Thank you, sweetie, he replied. The thin line that delineated the upper and lower segments of his head seemed to glister. Eli nearly choked. "What a darling you are," she applauded. "Oh dear," the robot hummed. "You're Flora." Sylvie fairly beamed. "Mission accomplished, my friends. It was so easy, girls." He capitulated immediately. "Why can't you just say you snared him with your wiles and let it go at that?" Morana of the scratched her antlers vigorously. "Man, these things itch. I hate summer." "So does Doobie." She caressed the shadow fawn's ear. Shadow fawns were virtually extinct, as was all life humans had deemed beneath them. "Well, they look amazing, Mora," Asacia said. "I envy you." "You shouldn't. They're so irritating during regrowth. I can hardly stand it." Sylvie cocked her head and scrutinized the mythos from the crown of leaves and berries to her cloven feet. "Why can't you just say they itch like crazy and let it go at that?" she mocked playfully. Mischief fairly oozed from Sylvie, and she delighted in the reactions of her targets. Asacia cupped her hands over her mouth and snorted. Gizzy and Asacia were preeminent sorceresses among the rubies. Gizzy's lavender pigtails were the talk of the apartment complex. Gizzy often changed the colour of her hair, not from shame of being Rufus-born. This had been a source of pride for her from the hour she had grasped its full impact. Gizzy was Gizzy, and she found sameness tediously monotonous. Janum was the warrior. She was the most accomplished Rufus-born fighters ever to wield a sword. Her safety and that of the sorceresses was priority. Seclusion, vital. The isolation of Cobb's brownstone in Tamazina Forest suited that purpose ideally. Restored and renamed when the shoot on-site edict was enforced by mercenaries employed by the autocrat, Vermilion House was home to a hand-picked fragment of the Rufus-born population. These few were chosen not because they were better than anyone else, but for the necessity of their survival. Morana was unadulterated mythos, and the mythos were omnipotent. It was Morana who removed the most unscrupulous threat from the autocrat. Morana who possessed Sylvie's disproportionate form and seduced Shu just as she would mould the overgrown oaf to serve their cause. Something not even Asacia or Gizzy could accomplish with their spells. Morana smiled at the others. She would never speak of it, and not even the rubies would infiltrate her mind. "Any more mistakes, you can kiss this gain goodbye." Hilary gnashed her teeth. "Ain't that what the trainee program is about?" Aya refused to back down. Her dark eyes clashed with Hilary's cautionary stare and locked on her quarry. "Learn, fall flat now, so you don't later." "What gall!" "Number 1, a trainee never disputes their better. Number 2, sog, you say." Aya readjusted the face mask she wore for protection. The Caths were a tenacious, strong-willed people, but their underdeveloped respiratory systems made them highly susceptible to airborne disease. "You ain't better than me." Her cat-like form crouched, ready to pounce. "You ain't better than nobody. You just think you are. When you started out, you were perfect, huh? No flubs, no screw-ups." "Excuse me, what's going on here?" "Chance," Hilary crooned. Her change of attitude could break the sound barrier. "I've been trying to contact you. Your immediate response to Red Alert is overwhelming, sir." "Sarcasm? You dare try sarcasm with me?" "Look," Hilary began. "Best leave it." Chance cut her off with a wave of her hand. "Just disclose." Hilary seethed. Sylvie has set her sights on Shu. If she succeeds. Already has. Chance shook her head. "But what's the Red Alert, Hilary?" Hilary's mouth was an open trap for floating debris. Chance raised her UV glasses, rubbed her nose wearily, then puffed a lusty breath at the ceiling. Aya frowned. Even a trainee could understand the ramifications of taking Shu out, but the satisfaction as she watched Hill squirm, and the fact the administrators would refuse to listen to her anyway, clouded her judgment. So, who told you about this? Chance asked. Who reported to you? Hilary looked from Aya to Chance, from Chance to Aya. Oh, this is ridiculous, Chance grasped, hand on hip. It isn't an exam. Who reported to you? Zarian, Hill said, her reply weak. Zarian is programmed to report all red alerts directly to. Zarian needs to be put out of his misery, Chance bellowed. See to it, Hilary. He's mine, not yours. Hill's voice reverberated throughout Orange Sector. You aren't my superior, Chance. You're an administrator, same as me. So don't order me about like one of your frightened rookies who breaks out in a cold sweat when they see you coming. It won't work. Chance looked from Hilary to Aya, from Aya to Hilary. Touché, Hill, she nodded. Touché. The three of them dispersed, each chuckling to themselves, and Hilary's guffaw seeped into every crevice of Orange Sector. Don't you get it, sous la fin? Blair brushed his fingers over his hair down to the nape of his neck. There is no autocrat. It's just a ruse, a trick established so long ago. The populace accepts its existence unconditionally. The statue, his face. Sullivan became disoriented, but went about sorting clothes for the day's wear. An easy task, since her wardrobe only held multiples of the same dress. But we pay homage to him before every death match. Obey his... A scowl crinkled her cheeks. Who? Exactly, Ola, Blair grinned. Who's responsible for the edicts we're supposed to live by? And the death matches? Denizen check. Hold the population at bay. Sula Fen stared at his boots, excited, nervous, anxious. There's a war coming, she thought. Blair often tapped his feet, PDQ, in anticipation of conflict. Pregnancy, licenses to carry, he persisted. He brandished a hand for emphasis. Zamps for illegals. Blair's eyes became vacant and wistful. You know what happens to captured illegals, Ola? Babies, olds, no exceptions. Target practice or torture to death. Slowly, for fun. Rubies, Sulafen offered. Her eyes remained downcast. Redheads are murdered outright. Why, Blair? Why are they so hated and feared? Oh, darling, you really don't know? Their eyes connected once again. Sulafen shook her head. I've never really wanted to know, I guess. With the autocrat almighty and... If we ignore wrong, Blair interjected, we all lose in the end, and we lose much more than our lives. He readjusted his spectacles and sighed heavily. Ola, his tone softened. Rubies can discern the unmitigated truth and the powers that be, not an individual, no lone dictator, a group of people, don't care to be ousted by honesty. For the first time in Blair's company, Sula Fen was speechless. She brushed away the stray hairs that fell across her forehead, her black eyes tearful. This clique includes administrators, trainees, lackeys within the populace itself, mercenaries, all ravenous for gains at any price, all willing to murder to hide their deception. His monologue concluded. But what can you... Sulafen hesitated. What can we do, Blair? Your alliance is small. A moment, dear. He dug into a pocket, one of several contained in the buckles of his boots, and removed a miniature device covered with chains and gears. Vigilance is always priority. He smiled and tripped a hidden lever that released a beautiful spray of golden sparks. This released microscopic bots whose sole purpose was to block any incoming or outgoing signals, visual and auditory. Now, Blair's smile widened to a grin. Let's discuss the alliance. A war is coming, Eli. Zarian's vocal apparatus stalled. Instantly his self-preservation program kicked in, and he pounded his barrel-shaped chest with such force he tottered backwards. Are you all right? Eli knelt close to him and chip. Fine, miss. Thank you. I'm fine. Miss, Eli crooned. How long it's been since anyone has called me that. Such a gentleman you are. Eli leapt to her feet and pointed at him. Not another war on bureau, she wailed. All people do any more is argue, fight, and demean each other. Zarian whirred and crackled, startled. Chep and Dwa mewled, their automated opinions faint, but adamant. You're right about that, Zarian said. But take comfort. This will be the end of it. You mean the last? Zarian nodded. It's always the last. Eli's usually steady voice trembled. Always the last war, until the next. This time it is. The robot's cerulean eyes appeared vague, almost empty. In a way, I wish I could report to the contrary, since it would mean someone would exist afterwards. But too many yaras of discord add up to annihilation, I'm afraid. Eli slumped. Her spirit felt trapped, caged. Everywhere? The whole planet? She cried. You can't know. I mean, not for sure. Misfortune has it that my precognitive programming's accuracy percentile is 99.99/100. Zarian's receiver flickered wildly. There's only the minutest possibility for any miscalculation. They stared at one another. Only Chep's and Dwa's yowls fractured the stillness that engulfed the dump Zone 3. Here, Zarian finally spoke. He offered Eli a robotic flower. I found this for you, he said. She sings harmony to whatever song you can remember or make up. She? Eli cradled the flower in her arms. The robot whirred. Her name is Vina. Eli. I'll miss you, Eli. Zarian's vocal apparatus stalled. Instantly, his self-preservation program kicked in and he pounded his barrel-shaped chest with such force he tottered backwards. Circle was not born a witch. It was a gift, a present of adoration from the state when she turned 700. Now virtually twice that age, her talent had matured little. She could handle trivial incantations, a few warts on the noses of pompous upstarts, an occasional nuisance migraine. Temporary vexations and momentary inconveniences were feeble defeats. The autocrat lavished substantial rewards for successes. How she craved the amalgastone whole, the singular motivation of Circle's existence and subservience to the power that be. The jewel was exclusive to the hierarchy. I have all but one fragment, she said to Racket. The flower pot on a shelf above her supply cabinet quivered ever so gently. Encircled by a wreath of pink flowers that framed her face, Circle's elf companion peered at the witch and rested her arms on the rim of her home. Affirmative, madam, Racket agreed. Her high-pitched whine was so cheerful it took Circle aback. Why do I sense an "and" in there somewhere? She asked wearily. Because there is, Racket said, sing-song. In the hush that followed, even the rustle of herbs hung over the window to dry tormented Circle's hypersensitivity. She crossed her arms at the elbows. How about a nice boil on your pretty little face? She glowered. Oh, sog, Racket twitched her nose. I know where you can find an entire amalga. No assembly required. You're joking. I never joke, madam. You know that. Where, then? The summit of East Wind Mountain. What? Circle's arms dropped to her sides. The summit of East Wind. The most unpredictable of the ascents. She felt breathless, as though an enormous weight crushed her chest. Yes, Racket said, it's the only source of amalga. The state harvests them and splinters many for auxiliary prizes to fools. Present company excluded, of course, she added shrewdly. Troubled by the mercurial location of amalgastones, the witch took no notice of her companion's flippancy. Well, I don't know how, but I will have the gem. Complete, unscathed, in the dominion its possession affords. You can do it, madam. Racket became a cheerleader. The petals around her head flashed in succession until she encompassed a blinding luminescence. Prophecy ordains its import. Circle's grey eyes dilated with pride. Prophecy, you say? Prophecy, the elf insisted. Still, you understand, the nature of omens necessitates discretion. I may disclose, but not unveil. Well now, the possibilities staggered Circle, but she maintained the dignity befitting a conjurer. Well now, I need to fly to East Wind Summit. You jest, madam, the elf preened her petals and chuckled. I never jest, Racket, you know that. The reception area of the apartment complex was unoccupied. In here, Sylvie invited. She guided Savage with a playful tug on the waist of his tunic. To the death. Shu kissed her, then stepped back. I will fight to the death to protect you and the rubies. His glutinous eyes absorbed every inch of Sylvie's copious form. Then he placed both hands on her shoulders. Just look at you, my beauty. You have snared a servant of the autocrat. Sylvie licked her lips. How do I know? How do you know what? Shu cocked his head. How do I know you will fight to the death to protect us, you rascal? Sylvie ran a finger down his chest. Her touch excited the barbarian, but he repressed the urges that threatened to overpower common sense. Because I vow. Shu yanked Sylvie close. His massive bulk dwarfed her in height and girth. You must never doubt Shu's pledge. My word is my honour, and my honour is my name. Among the Lums, a man who defames his name is shunned. Sylvie wriggled, but his grasp was unbreakable. Living dead should be dead, Shu roared. The pressure of his grip was too great. Sylvie cried out. Morana slipped into Sylvie's body as easily as one might change clothes. Empty, her own would have been vulnerable, a pulsating vacancy light that would attract the spirit of any mortal. There were always those souls with a yen to be a little younger, a tad older, maybe slightly thinner. Everyone had issues, and to most cloven hooves were the least of their concerns. But Morana was mythos and invincible, an empty statue. Her physical form stood atop the crest of East Wind Mountain. Doobie, secure in the comfort that he was safe, lay at his companion's feet and awaited her return. She would have dealt with Shu herself without Sylvie's involvement, but the Lum believed cloven hooves to be evil incarnate, and to beguile the primitive outright would have meant immediate bloodshed. Sylvie has snared herself in the role of seductress, Morana thought, but she's just a child so unable to cope with her own abilities. She patterns her life after a character in some ancient novel. Doubt you? Why, no, dearest, Morana said. Strange, it always felt eerie to speak through another humanoid. Your arrival at Vermilion House was preceded by grandiose tales of your strength and courage. In fact, no warrior in Lum history could match Shu's acclaimed career. Morana's appeal oozed sugar, yet was sincere enough to soothe the Lum male's ego. Shu, however, was more than egotistical. He was a treacherous megalomaniac. The name of Shu will reverberate throughout all Bureau, Morana said. She felt the barbarian's clutch ease. Why be so harsh? Love should be compassionate, darling. His lack of expression told Morana he was unfamiliar with the word. Gentle, understanding, lenient, she said. Lovers should be kind. Lovers. Shu grabbed Sylvie's body into his embrace. Morana smiled. In private, my room. No, my room, Shu demanded, and this time for the night. The wind blasts often reached gale of force atop the summit. Loose rock underfoot made each step precariously arduous even for a witch, especially for one whose skills never developed beyond level 1. This qualified Circle as a dilettante, and that galled her. Well now, she heaved in a deep breath. Prodigious expertise in climbing was a must on East Wind. The summit was in the death zone, and oxygen insufficient. The real battle was against time, against the confusion that overtakes the mind after a few hours of deprivation, confusion that often led to lamentable decisions. Circle paused to survey the incline ahead. Priorities, she thought. Not much further. Racket said the Amalga grounds lay this side of Humming Brook, and that's just one more obstacle blocking my path. Oh, she clambered up and over a boulder and found herself confronted by an extremely realistic statue of... No, not a statue. Circle spotted the shadow forms curled around the base. Oh my sog, a mythos. She glanced again. And you, little one? Dewby stirred and yawned a greeting, perhaps the one flaw in a shadow fawn's genetic makeup. Until they gave them a reason not to, they trusted everyone. This weakness led to the species' extinction, but this witch loved animals, what the world had left of them. Dewby risked no danger by her hand. In fact, Circle would have gathered him into her arms and taken him home to a downy pillow by the fireplace. Her attention returned to the overt mythos before her. How long the shell had been deserted? A day at best, no more. The skin was a pale blue and so cold to the touch. Had the witch's hand been the least bit moist, it might have stuck like a child's tongue to a frozen flagpole. Well now, a definite warmth began to radiate from the body. Frost that had clustered about the fur dissolved into beads of water. "You're home, aren't you?" Circle whispered. "Well now, you are home." Circle's whisper became an exclamation of delight. "Dewby?" Re-entry was always a shock to the system that left Marana groggy and disorientated until she regained mental balance. "The little one is fine," Circle assured him, "but the question remains, am I?" Marana rubbed her eyes to focus her vision. "You're splendid, Circle. Why would you think otherwise?" "The air is thin up here. It leaves me muddled." Circle shook her head. "I can see what you are, but you know me from where, may I ask?" "The prophecy." Marana wriggled vigorously to rid herself of the droplets of water that dotted her beautiful grey fur. "Well now, the prophecy again. You'll need an amalga to fulfill your purpose, intact and undamaged. That is what Racket couldn't reveal. You know my elf? I know everyone." Marana waved a hand. "Why, you're here. Why, you, a maladroit witch who qualifies for mere dilettante status." "Hey!" Circle protested. Marana continued unfazed. "You need that jewel whole, in one piece. An amalgam comprised of fragments holds limited power. Do you think the fictitious autocrat would actually reward even their top necromancers such infinite control, bit by bit?" "Fictitious?" Circle nearly choked on her spittle. "Your destiny is absolute dominion over the preternatural." Marana stomped, a hoof, impatient with the constant interruptions. "And to deflect a war that would mean the total annihilation of Planet Bureau," she added with a perfunctory nod. The shadow fawn nudged Marana's knee and bleated. "Oh, Dewby," she cooed. "Feeling ignored, my treasure?" Circle tensed. She began. "We need to get going," Marana said without looking up. "You'll have the amalga you crave before your next well. Now." The cry sounded like that of a child. Dewby watched Marana and Circle as they barreled along a winding path away from him. His mistress had told him to stay put, and shadow fawns always obeyed those they loved without question. But the millisecond she was out of his sight, distress clouded him like a sledgehammer. Marana's vision was so blurred with tears she nearly lost sight of the trail ahead. "Oh, Dewby," she murmured to him telepathically, "I'm not deserting you." A mellifluous lullaby, familiar and hypnotic, wafted through his mind. "Sleep, my treasure. I'll return before you wake up." "Will he be safe?" Circle asked. "Or would I leave him otherwise?" "Well, no, I don't know that, do I?" "I won't dignify that with a reply." Marana skidded to an abrupt halt and glared at Circle's back as the witch overtook her. Circle stopped and whirled around. "Goodness," she said, hands on hips. "I'd apologize, but I never do." "Well now," Marana scoffed, "you should learn. The future depends upon it." She dashed past. "Life and death, Circle, remember. Come on." "You must take me for a soggen fool," Circle gnashed her teeth. "This isn't the summit of Eastwind. This is Arian Minor. How—" "Your question should be, who?" Marana rested her hands on her knees and tried to catch her breath. Her nostrils flared. "Who then?" Circle screamed. "Chiron Jabez," Marana said. "She has volunteered oxygen beads to avoid deprivation in the amalga fields." "Ah," Here she is. A bluish-green head crested with a singular, intricate fin emerged from the water near the shore of Lake Telenchinlenol, literally interpreted, the fire above. 3/4 of its surface was covered by a crimson phosphorescent algae that frequently burst into flames and burned indefinitely. Yellow-rimmed eyes shot a weary glance at the witch. Here, a fin-like hand tossed what appeared to be a golden key to Marana. Be quick, another inferno begins. Chiron Jabez pointed. The roots sting. Thank you, and to your people. Marana clutched the oxygen fount to her chest. This seals the fate of the autocrat once and for good. The autocrat, Chiron Jabez grumbled, not exterminate us and happily toast our demise. The Quaman had all but vanished years ago during a removal campaign to rid Bureau of its undesirables. Defined by the state as any non-humanoid life form, the operation managed to eradicate 90% of life, not of their own species. Be safe always, my friend, Marana bowed courteously. Chiron Jabez nodded toward Circle. Just who is she exactly? Your savior, Marana said. No. Shu howled like the winds had blown his god into the abyss. Circle secures an uncut amalga. Our stratagems means little more than children's fancies. Janum's backside slapped against the barren floor of the parlour. Calm, she said, and formed a heart shape with her fingers. You've seceded from the autocrat, remember? What they do is important only in the stopping of it. Should I tell him Circle sides with the state for amenities? He's sincere in his desire to protect Sylvie and us, but Shu reacts so violently when he finds things aren't as he believes them to be. He has many forces, too many to count. The barbarian's eyes flashed from anger to vacant. Our homeland. Gizzy watched his feet pummel the baseboard. No one, man or woman, is the autocrat, she put in. The autocrat is the state. Oh dear, too late, Janum thought. The statue, Shu huffed. You can't argue with visible proof. Have you really looked at the face, Shu? The softness of Asatia's voice was emphatic. I mean, really looked. It's a generic representation intended to captivate the populace and keep them in tow. Pathetically humanoid, Janum shook her head. The only species they deem fit to propagate, she added sadly. Lum or humanoid? Shu's fist left a gaping hole in the wall. Sylvie nestled against his chest. A breed within the species, like the Quaman, like... Still human, Shu bellowed. Asacia stretched out on her stomach. You're an extremely intelligent man. The barbarian offered a tentative nod. So, Gizzy and Janum asked in tandem, is being human a prerequisite for the right to live, do you think? Of course not. The deer and bear Lum hunt for food and clothes. Each spirit we celebrate in thanks for giving up their lives so we can survive. Shu put an arm around Sylvie. We don't kill for the joy of killing. Like the state, Asacia said. A.K.A. the autocrat. Sylvie looked up at Shu. This time her adoration was genuine. This time she felt compassion, tenderness for the barbarian. She saw beyond the gruff exterior and discovered she actually loved him. Those who've employed you are those who've systematically executed your people. Men, women, babies. Janum wriggled restless, then resettled in a more pensive mode. Those who've employed you, she murmured, are those who've killed Planet Bureau. Circle will succeed, Janum, said Gizzy. She must. Shu sat in the nearest chair that would support his weight and pulled Sylvie onto his lap. I am a reasonable, perceptive man, but lack the ability to recognize absolute truth. He kissed her gently. I defer to the foresight of those I vowed to protect. Sylvie beamed. She felt like the proud fountainhead of a new genre. Weary, but unbeaten, The pair shielded their eyes from the brilliant kaleidoscope of reds, blues, purples, and golds that whirled before them. The amalga fields, Marana brandished her free hand over the vast expanse ahead. "Sog if I won't go blind," Circle brayed. "Let's grab a stone and be gone." "We don't just grab a stone if we can slip through. The dregs, will grant us passage." Newman, dregs. Their eyes began to adjust to the dazzling luminescence. "Your many gains from the state hasn't included much knowledge, has it?" Marana stomped a hoof. "Listen, you." "No, you listen," Marana whispered. "The Newmen are ghosts who'd rejoice in our entrapment. The living give them sustenance. They react to sound. Once we pass this barrier, tread softly, not a word." She put an index finger to her lips. "And don't bump any of the creepers, whatever you do. Even a brush of fabric will set them off in chorus." "Anything else, dear?" Circle said, contempt oozing through her clenched teeth. If we reached the dregs, the amalga fields lay just beyond their territory. "And these dregs will give us a stone?" "No, dear. You connect with one." "Connect?" "We really don't have time for this," Marana snapped. "The state moves against the Abet within hours. That happens, and Planet Bureau won't even be a recollection for spawn. No one will remain to carve the elegy." "Well now, the prophecy?" "Prophecies are self-fulfilled, my sog. Don't you know that either?" Marana clomped down a hoof so hard it left a deep imprint in the grassy meadow. "You forge your own destiny, regardless of the path." She kneeled and repaired the hole gently. "It would be expedient if you choose your way now, Circle." The witch bowed her head. "Just so you know, my instruction was never sponsored by the state." "I understand little," she murmured. "Just so you know." Marana glanced up. "You understand what you want to understand, what suits your interests." She cocked her head and smiled. "It's why the state refused your application. They saw in you a danger to their authority." Circle's and Marana's eyes harmonized. "Well now." "Indeed," the mythos drawled. "I suggest Bureau's future should be of great interest under the circumstances, that's all." The witch nodded briskly. "Be mindful of the creepers, and not a word beyond the barrier." Her voice faded as Circle eased past the petrified tree into Newman territory. "Wait," Marana whispered as loud as she dared. "The creepers are." Circle spun around on her heels, but kept walking backwards. She shook her head violently as if to deter any further jibes, while her eyes bulged like an ecstatic rat. "The creepers aren't vines," Marana cautioned. "Sog, now she tells me." The witch spoke low, even in her mind, fearful that even the mere vibrations of her thoughts might trigger the Newman. She hunched and shrugged a silent question. Marana gestured, and downward sweep of both hands. "Stop," she mouthed. "There's one overhead." Overhead? Circle looked skyward. Their screams would have echoed throughout the amalga fields had they not clamped their hands over the gaping caverns of their lips. "Reckless!" Marana yanked the witch to safety behind the barrier. Circle smoothed the front of her robe. "She should have told me straight away the creepers were floaters." "With tentacles? Very long-reaching tentacles." The mythos eyed her matter-of-factly, then laughed. "You know now. Lessons learned the hard way are remembered best. So we really do need to hurry." Marana nodded briskly, and the pair guided their path with watchful eyes on the heavens. The Newmen were a quiet presence, tricky, sneaky. Circle and Marana were a silent presence, crafty, shrewd. The pair weaved a trail through the network of creepers without disturbing even the crankiest of Newmen, and reached the security of Dreg's territory. "Be extremely aware of your steps here," Marana said. Her eyes were transfixed on the high grasses that spread like olive and burnt umber waves rippling amongst the pines that dotted the woodland floor. "The dregs are teensy-wincy little fellas, hard to see." Marana set a hoof down lightly and gazed upward as if looking over spectacles. "You'll be quite dead if you tromp on one." Marana cupped her hands together and held them to her mouth, which amplified her call. "Amarantha." Clover! Circle flinched and eyed the heavens. Marana chuckled. We're out of Newman domain, she said, and creepers are exclusive to that region. Relax. Relax? If we tread on a dreg, we're dead? Figuratively speaking. What? The witch said, her question monotone. If you kill a dreg, the entire community shuts you out. You're never again recognized, not even by an outcast of their own kind. Well now, why do I sense there's an and here? And you forfeit the Amalga Stone. Marana cupped her hands and called, again, still louder, Amarantha! Clover! I know you're here. Who is with you? A shrill voice rose from amidst the tall grass. The saviour of Bureau, Marana said boldly. She needs permission to harvest an Amalga, complete and unscathed. Her species runs through here and steals them. A piercing, ear-hurting soprano blasted from atop a milk-capped mushroom. They have a grand appetite for dragged lives. Clover, my friend, Marana grinned. And Molu? I see you, sweetie. The minuscule dragon soared from the shadows and hovered over the dreg. Molu's pops and clicks greeted Marana warmly. Amarantha joined her husband atop the mushroom and snuggled close to him. You may cajole, Molu, but Clover and I are not so easily convinced. Well now, maybe I can convince you, Circle interjected a tad gruffer than she had intended, immediately regretful. She felt the oppressive weight of 1,000 eyes bearing down on her. Diplomacy, Marana whispered. Diplomacy. I only meant that perhaps this lovely couple might allow me to note that I and those of the state don't share the same ancestry. In point of fact. Really? Amarantha drawled. No? Clover queried, his curiosity piqued. Circle looked to Marana. The mythos cocked her head. It's all yours, she smiled. No. Circle bowed politely to Clover and Amarantha. I'm a witch who would become sorceress to save Bureau from self-destruction. An Amalga, perfect, whole, and in my hands will accomplish that. But I must have it soon. Amarantha and Clover studied the witch from the top of her head to the hem of her robe. And the killing of dregs, they muttered. The killing of dregs will stop, Circle said. As we speak, it will stop. You have the authority to assure this, Amarantha squinted. Of course, once I secure the jewel. Then it is yours. Amarantha rose and curtsied. With our blessings, Clover bowed. What? Circle's whole demeanour flattened like an origami star crushed under. Marana shrugged her eyebrows. Would you have believed it, she said, had I told you outright? Circle, you don't need anyone's permission. Guidance, oh yes, but permission? I think not. You turn your own pages, write your own story. But would you have believed it, sincerely, deep down in your heart? Circle cocked her head and studied the mythos from dainty hooves to the intricate crown of ivy. You know, the witch spoke serenely, I never noticed till now, but your coronet is seasonal. I mean, we were in summer, now coming in autumn. The reds are defined, I see. More observant, Marana thought. Bravo! She smiled, pleased by Circle's cognitive transformation. And the glyphs on your face and body aren't tribal decorations, the witch continued. Her eyes glistened with the revelations bombarding her brain. They're sensory panels, and your antlers transmitters. Why, you can even... Of course I can. Marana blinked slowly and raised a hand to deflect the scrutiny. She watched the wish blossom like a seed pod bursts to reveal the source of life. Circle shed her chrysalis and burgeoned into the assurance of hope fulfilled. More than a witch, more than a sorceress. Circle was a deity incarnate. Marana's voice rustled through the night. Time for you to write the epilogue. She bowed graciously. In the wake of a worldwide fireball, one mechanized anthem rose above the flames. Misfortune has it, Zarian's vocal apparatus stalled. Instantly, his self-preservation program kicked in and he pounded his barrel-shaped chest with such force he tottered backwards. The little robot tickled Chep's and Dwar's heads and drew his companions near. She sings harmony to whatever song you can remember or make, he buzzed. Eli, he added quickly. I'll miss you, Eli. Circle recreated Bureau anew, and when she looked at what she had done, she saw that it was very good.